Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to Faraja Digital Television. We are here in conversation today specifically about gender and about gender equality in particular. I've been joined by two amazing ladies who are going to be taking us through what gender equality means. So I'm going to invite them to come and introduce themselves. But before they do, I want to give a backstory that this year, 2025, we mark 30 years after the Beijing Declaration, which is, and I would like to say, Uganda as a country have made considerable progress. We have relatively more women in parliament, for example, and leadership positions, but we also have made some improvement in legal protection for women. Yet, very many women still, and young ones to be specific, still grapple with a lot of barriers. And today we're in conversation to talk about those barriers. What barriers are there? What is it that we need to do? What is it we are not doing right that we need to improve? So I'm going to invite, to begin with, Vicky to introduce yourself. And as you do, after you introduce yourself, please tell us just something, a phrase or something that comes to your mind when someone says, when you hear the word gender equality.
Thank you so much. I'd love to introduce myself, and it's a pleasure to have me on this show. I'm really honored to the team in Faraja and to you, the moderator for this session. I'm called Vicky Namugobe. I'm a lawyer by profession, and I've also served as the 7th Speaker of the National Youth Parliament. I always love to say that I am a young mother out there. And I'm also, of recent, one of the ideas that came in my mind that we're trying to focus and push SDG 5. I and my friends decided to carry out a certain survey, and later on we've opened up an organization which is called You and Next Africa. It's an organization that is usually going to champion the intergenerational gap that is already existing to see that we can be able to cover it. When we talk about the concept of gender equality, me personally, I've looked at gender equality in something that goes beyond just one sex and one gender. The fact that most of the time people are talking about gender equality, they are going to focus more on the girl child and usually tend to forget what the boy child has to offer in place. So for me, I've understood over time, because over time they've told us educate the girl child, then you educate the nation, and they've told us all various things, which we do believe in and which are progressive in nature. But after me having a boy child in my family, really, I came to realize that as much as we are fighting for gender equality and spaces to have gender usually is both sexes. It's important that we have a conversation that is going to bring equality even between the boys, because the boys have their own challenges that are being ignored, even the girls have their challenges. So to have the conversation of gender equality, it's important that we harmonize all genders together and we have a progressive conversation to see that we are equally having the stand on all fronts, on all spheres of the nation, economically, politically, socially, and having all these genders move together at hand. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. And with us is another individual who's also a seasoned, I would like to add. I don't know if I should say feminist, but you can introduce yourself and tell the people.
Hello everyone, thank you, Rogers. My name is Fancy Sheila Arumaraj. I identify as an African feminist lawyer. So yes, a feminist. Yes. And with that, I have so many other hats, but I would love to just say I'm an African feminist lawyer. I do work around mentorship of female students of law or young women lawyers. I run a social enterprise that does shea butter production. I do things around leadership and advocacy. And for me, gender equality comes from a feminist perspective, knowing that women too are people. So for me, that's gender equality. Yeah.
Wow. Brief, precise, and to the point. All right. So let me ask you this way. What does a gender equal Uganda look like for you?
For me, a gender equal Uganda, which is something we shall continue to work towards, we have achieved to an extent. So for me, a gender equal Uganda would mean seeing the voice of young women are a part of decision-making processes and spaces. Is that decision is being made and there is a young woman that has been heard, and her perspective, her energy is a part of that decision. Okay. Knowing that we do not have to have a backlash. For me, that's gender equality. A backlash around women's rights will not be something that exists. that 50 years from now, we're not trying to counter that backlash because probably didn't prepare ahead of time, or we are having conversations and efforts, investments around a gender equal world, or we did it wrongly. So knowing that 50 years from now, we are doing more of celebration and we are speaking quite the same language. It might never be the same, but to an extent, we are speaking the same language. That when we come here 50 years from now, a bigger space and all of that, Faraja, digital television, we are celebrating how much effort has been put in place by different stakeholders to achieve gender equality, and not why haven't we achieved gender equality. So for me, that would be a gender equal Uganda.
That's an interesting, bold vision. And we're going to come back to that. But I want to ask Vicky just a bit, what your vision, what would a gender equal Uganda look like in your own perspective as well?
Okay, for me, my perspective about a gender equal Uganda, it would be an injustice really to talk about a gender equal Uganda without looking at the progress that has been made over time. You understand that over time, the ladies and the women especially have been having challenges to fit within the society in all spheres. Because this is why we have a lot of movements that have come to place to see that they bring the ladies back on these platforms to be actually having an equal say, just as the gentlemen would be having. Over time, we've seen a lot of movements, like she said, the feminist movements coming in place. Over time, we saw a lot of legal frameworks that have been stipulated. We saw the coming in of Mexico conference, the Copenhagen, Nairobi conference, up to the Beijing, as you already stipulated. These were all conferences that were attended towards bringing the concept of gender equality on board. But if you come to understand that at the beginning and the genesis of all these conferences and efforts, there has been an evolution over time. And I think an evolution comes according to the demands of the world and the demands of the society that are placed at hand. Because at hand, initially, women were seen as property, and at a particular time, we were living in a world that was not yet reached the civilization and industrial areas. So they were thought of as property. They had nothing to say, and they were owned generally. But over time, you find that the demands of the society go on evaluating over time. Now, currently, we have different challenges. Yes, after the Beijing Convention that happened in 1995, we have seen progressive strides that have come in place. We have a lot of things, like we had the constitution coming in place, women affirmative action coming in place, and everything. Those were challenges to address those were solutions to address the challenges at hand, because the challenges at hand were there was development. Women were not being engaged in that development. There was education. Women were not being engaged in the education. In the health sector, women were ignored at that particular time. But in today's generation, we have things that are new on board. We have the concepts in environment. We have the media. We have everything, the digital divide that is coming in, climatic change. These are challenges that women now, again, they are still sidelined on the other basis and the other part of it. So when I'm talking about a gender equal Uganda, we have to be live to the current circumstances that are creating the revolutionary changes all over the nation right now. Because for me to see that we have a gender equal status, as I told you, it's important that these women are brought in spaces and are brought in board to be able to deliberate on these matters, the matters concerning the digital divide, where women are not being included. We are moving towards a technified era, but how many women are in these technologies? We are having issues of environmental, climate change and all that. Women are the caregivers. Women are the ones who are in the gardens producing food, but they do not understand these concepts. They are not being brought on board. In boardrooms, we are having gentlemen who are sitting and deciding decisions for these women. So what I'm looking about in this current Uganda is we should progressively put in the concept of affirmative action and have all women included on board. But as I initially said, we are pushing for these women. Me, I believe a gender equal Uganda is leaving no one behind, leaving no stone chained. Look at the women, focus at them, but then look at also the vulnerable youth, who are the boys, who are also some boys who are outside there, who also are challenging. Let us move this conversation, because we can't talk of gender equality in a Uganda today, and we are talking about the male gender and forgetting about the female gender, because excuse me, at the end of it all, we are going to have a male pulling down the women. We are going to have again a backlash in the same things that we are pushing for. So for me, a gender equal Uganda is having all these sexes brought in board to address the current challenges that are facing Uganda. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to get back to you, Fancy. You did say a bold vision about Uganda and where that would look like in your lens. And as you look at Uganda today, what do you see as the biggest barriers that are standing between where we are and the vision you just described? And what is it that is holding us back from getting to that position?
So just like they normally say, it takes a village to raise a child and all of that. I definitely believe it takes still a village to break down us getting there at a certain point.
Okay.
And of course, that's part of life generally. But what are some of the barriers? For me is when we started the conversation around gender and all of that, our foremothers and forefathers who were part of that, I think there was a miss on how do they transition and let this and allow the next group of people, the next younger people, take charge. So that gap wasn't filled, that conversation wasn't had. And so right now you find, they say life starts at 50, and you find they have started life right now at 50, for example, the older people who are in leadership, who are in spaces and influencing the senior citizens, for a more polite word. That's true. So you find they are taking charge right now at their age. But you find now with us who have come up, you find people start taking charge at the age of 20. They're able to make decisions. They're in workspaces. People graduate at 23 and they start doing amazing things at 23. And then they need to be a part of the system that is in place. But then you find there's still people occupying that system. So what am I saying? One of the barriers is the fact that we didn't have that conversation, that there's going to be different generations that are going to come with different evolutions, that will not start living life at 50 or taking opportunities at 30, at 40, but much earlier. So how prepared were they for this time is where, for me, the gap is where the gap really is, that our foremothers, forefathers, and foreparents didn't prepare for that gap, knowing that 20 or 50 years from now, we were going to be ready to do what they are doing at the age of 40 or 50. And I think that for me is a question on mentorship. That, which for me still links to the gap, that there was no sense of mentorship then, which now has built us or has helped us grow to know that we can take it one step at a time and not want to dive into the system the way the idea of, I can't become a president at 20 years, which is very okay. I can't take up this, which is very okay. But how can I walk this journey together with you, who is an MP, who is, a bank manager? How do I walk this journey with you if I want to get there 2 years from now, 3 years from now? So for me, that could really be a barrier that has continued to really affect many young women, but also even drawing from the vision, the fact that our voices are not there. Decisions are being made for us. I have a very big, maybe this is an example that I can use. I have a very big issue with the contraceptions for women. And I know that's really a very heated conversation many a times. And also contraception which could also include menstrual products. And one time I saw online someone saying, I don't think it's women that made some of these menstrual products like pads. It must have been the men. And so when these conversations come up, you find they are heated conversations. One, because if I am complaining that this is not working out for me, I don't feel comfortable using this, then I don't think I was there in the process of this being made for me. That should clearly make sense. Or it was a particular demographic that was used to make this particular product for me. And that is really an off example. But coming back to the point is, if I'm not going to be there when you are asking, what do you want to eat today? And you buy something I don't want to eat, am I really going to be happy? I'm not. I'm going to stay hungry, of course. So if I'm not there at the decision-making table, how am I going to benefit from what you have brought on table for me? You're definitely going to fight with me about it at the end of the day. And for me, those could be the two barriers, that there's a gap in mentorship, which might not, or was not anticipated to, have happened, but also the fact that I continue to remain absent as a young woman in spaces that things need to happen, decisions need to be made. For me, is other barriers.
That's very interesting. Interesting for a lady, feminist lady, must I say, to have a problem with menstrual products, because you guys are at least some of them are some of the people who are behind
Quite true.
very many of these inventions and developments. But anyway, so I'm coming back to you, Vicky. You did mention that some of the things looking at gender, Eco Uganda would also look at progressive affirmative actions. They're going to look at looking at the evolving challenges every single time, now and then. And I wanted to understand from you, just like Fancy did mention, what is it that stands between that affirmative action that you're mentioning and our being alive to the fact that there's a changing trends and evolving trends that we need to be alive to? What is standing between that we need to have and where we are right now?
So I think if we are to address such a challenge, or if we are to have a conversation over this challenge, we need to actually look at the different spheres in the nation. Like we have the political, we have the social, and then we have the economic sphere. For me, I feel like that is where the challenges are really best, because we are trying to find solutions on how we are going to fix these women into political spaces. We are finding how we are going to have them in the economic conversations, how we are going to empower them. Then socially and culturally, how are they going to fit in this society? And I think my comrade here, Fancy, raises pertinent issues, because she's spoken about the issue of mentorship and the issue of the political discussions. And really, are we women at the forefront, or really on the decision-making tables of these decisions that we are actually coming on board? You know, the beauty that I have seen about Uganda over time, ever since the Beijing Declaration of 1995, we've had, like, I think, the people who represented us in those conferences, I think when they came back home, they came during a time and a season when we are making consultations for the 1995 Constitution. And for me, I recognize the efforts really of those people who really sat in these consultative meetings and moved around Uganda, because it was an inclusive system where we found that women were included in these decisions. We have women who are out there whom we can mention over, who were part of this decision-making processes. Like, I believe Miriam Matembe was on the decision-making table on consulting in the 1995 Constitution. So you would find that these people advanced and pushed for things that were really working out for the ladies at that particular moment. We had the concept, as I told you, of affirmative action, representation of women in political spaces and everything. But you find that even despite, we have the best laws, we have Domestic Violence Act, we have the Anti-Trafficking Act, we have all laws that are there to protect women and to empower women. But then the challenge comes in the concept of implementation of these laws that are meant to advance and protect women to enter into a sphere of gender equality. The problem comes in the concept of implementation. First of all, we ask ourselves, yes, the Constitution is going to tell us we have a third of women who are supposed to be locally represented. We have them. We have in our local councils, you're going to go in LC1, it's going to be stipulated you have to have women political representation. We have them. But then the challenge comes in a suffocating era, whereby the concept of tokenism is going to come in. And how women usually are the vulnerable people economically. How are they going to be able to participate in these spaces? Me personally have participated in spaces when I am a married lady. So every time I want to come onto a political desk, I need to have a conversation with my spouse and sit with my spouse and ask him, Mister, there's this position I'm vying for, and in one point in another, his decisions may have to pass on mine, because if he has to say that, no, this is not the way to go, at the moment in time, that means I'm not going to go for that politics. It could be my desire, but I will have to drop out at a certain point in time, because society has over time told us that, you know what, as women, the men are the subjects of the family. So if a man is advising you, how are you going to stand against him and actually say no? So you find that those are the small challenges that we are saying to reach into the implementation of these laws. Because at the end of it all, I'm asking for decision. Then again, I come to ask him for financing. He has accepted. Now I'm asking him, the finances I have are not enough. I'll need your backup. He's going to give me the finances to run in these positions. But at the end of the day, whose interest am I pushing? Is it my interest or the interest of the funder at that point in time? So you're going to find that still our policies, as much as they are perfect, even when I come on board, that's why you are seeing that there are many good policies. We have political representation in parliament. We have 188 women representing us in parliament. But how many laws come out of the parliament that are women friendly?
So if we do have the women, as you
Yes.
mentioned, and we do have representation, that I agree.
Yes.
But so where is the problem is what I'm trying to...
Now, that is why I'm trying to tell you that if we have this, we are also, even with the women, we are failing to bring up the policies that are going to help us advance. That means the problem in this concept of even mentorship and political representation, we are going to root it back, coming back. It's going to be attached to the social and cultural norms.
Yes.
That is it. Because we are bound as Africans to our social and cultural norms. Your social and cultural norms, that's why I told you, there's a social norm that is going to tell you man is the subject of our home. Before you come, you have to do this. So no matter how we are making progress, this challenge is backing us, dragging us down. We are talking about even go back to your home area, into your culture setting. Ask yourself how many people, for me, I'm from Bugisu, we have Inzuyeva Masava, how many women sit on that board? Yet they are going to make decisions that are culturally impacting on what girls are facing in the society. We have circumcision. They're going to tell, I don't want really to disclose certain cultures because they're going to tell you as a man before circumcision, you have to do this, you have to do this. All these activities are endangering the girl child. But are there women sitting on those tables? We have political representation. How many women sit? When we get the political representation as women, instead of forcing and pushing for policies that are friendly for us, the women, that can groom us and help protect us to achieve gender equality, we are fighting each other at the end of it all. Of recent, you had the saga that was going on between Anita Among and Kadaga, how they were taking themselves. These are women who are in leaders of leadership that should mentor us. So if you look at these barriers, we are struggling fighting ourselves. The social culture norms are pulling us back. The concept of tokenism, and yet women do not have the finances, it's still dragging us down. Like, you will find these challenges, they are still existent and pertinent that we need to do away with so that we progressively reach political aspirations of representation of women in this.
I want to come back to I'm very glad that you brought out some of the leaders this season on that. And I'm going to come back to you about the intergenerational perspective about what do we do now. Here we are, like you mentioned earlier, we have the evolving issues every now and again. We have people who are decision making from the last generations, and then we have issues that are sort of more into this new generation that we not have. So I'm going to come back to you, but and I'm glad also you mentioned something about the laws, and I want to come back to Fancy with the background of the law. If you had an opportunity to make just one law or a bold decision, decree if you have it, yes. Let's take it at that. What would that be and why?
Bold decision. She's mentioned we have so many laws, and
Yeah.
I am glad we have.
Mhm.
We are protective enough in terms of laws. Bold decision would be before we get to. I want to give a context perspective. If someone has started up an organization, for example, before we register them or give them a permit or a funder wants to invest in them, we need to be sure that whether it's not going to be something directly beneficial to women or young women, whether it's going to be fish farming or anything, or crop farming, or I don't know, anything, engineering, we have representation of women, young women, in their leadership, in how that particular project or idea is going to benefit them at the end of the day. Because women form a big part of every society, every community, whether it's in the markets authority, I don't know, every space, there is a representation of women.
Yes.
So we need to see that representation in your organization, database, or anything that there should be a voice of women. There should be representation of those women. And I think that at the end of the day helps everyone. Just what I said, it takes the whole village to raise a child. So at the end of the day, everyone is being a part of this one conversation that is being left to civil society, is being left to politicians, is being left to mothers, is being left to us young women. Everyone is being a part of this conversation because you have it's mandatory. You have to have women a part of your decision, a part of your board, a part of your.
So that's you also saying that the laws, or let's take it, laws or policies that are currently available, are they not serving the purpose? Would you say? Why do we have the laws, and yet we are still struggling with the gaps that the laws were intended to address in the first place?
I think because for me, honest perspective is the laws are there and it does speak to that. For example, when you see in the company's laws, it does speak to the fact that you need a percentage of women or it needs to be a balance, right? Yes. When it comes to your organization and all of that. For me, it comes back to how do we interpret that? How do we break that down to community? How is that context specific to a community? Because yes, I am going to say I have started an organization. It's in Karamoja, or it's supposed to support the process of circumcision in Bugisu region, right? The healing process of the men. But and then Fancy's somewhere in Uganda telling us we need to have women a part of that organization, their voices. So how do we trickle this down to help understand, as much as this organization is simply addressed to the men, we need to have women at the end of the day, their voices, because I'm quite sure I'm not from that region, but I'm very sure I have seen and I have heard women make a good percentage of that whole process. The preparations, in the entertainment, and in all of that. And so you find there's going to be women a part of that whole process. That's really, a practical example. So I think, how do we help people understand that this law states this? And at the end of the day, this is what we are trying to achieve from the law. Because then they don't know, how do I contribute to helping women be on my board? Because I don't know, the law states that, but how do I do that? What does that mean to me as an organization leader?
So context specific.
Yes, and how do we break it down for people? The laws are there, but sometimes it gets hard. I can't just give someone the Companies Act and tell them, that's what it's saying, so we need it. Yes, so we need that. So how do I break it down for this person? Yeah.
So make sure it's context specific. All right. Thank you very much. I think that's more insightful. And I want to get back to one of the barriers you mentioned at first in the beginning is the lack of mentorship. And we have a very good opportunity that Vicky here comes from a perspective of the role of the intergenerational cooperation and collaboration. And I want to ask about that. What is it, do you think, that could help us? Do you think, if we're looking at a gender equal society and Uganda in this context, is there a way we can work out that intergenerational mandate between who is behind and who is forward? And how do we make sure that this relationship plays into making it an environment that is gender responsive, that is gender equal in every perspective?
Okay, thank you so much. But just before I come to the intergenerational role, I just wanted to just supplement something on what she said about the challenges and all that and the way forward and what we can be able to do. Now, I have understood that the concept of a policy, people I think fail to understand it, but a policy is something that is very vital into the society. It's very vital. A lot of things in a society run because of a concept of laws and policies. Because a society that doesn't have a policy or a law, like we are living in a barbaric society, no one to control who, no one to fight for whose rights, we're just moving like animals on the street. So the law plays a very vital, important role in this concept of gender equality. Because for me, one thing I understand, over time, I have read cases. I'm very passionate about health. And I believe that health, the right to health is the highest attainable. Okay, it's the highest right that can lead us to attain other rights. Because if you're not healthy, you're not going to be able even to ask for gender equality. You're not going to be able to be in places and everything. And I feel like in one place or another, as we are moving towards the gap of gender equality in Uganda, these are sectors that have not been touched actually, or example, the government is deliberately not answering or replying or reaching out to this call. And yet this is a sector that really affects the women in particularly. You're going to find that if education is being handled, yes, we have the points and everything that the government, UPE, UCE, that the government, we right now even the government are in TVET education. So they are making various reforms, but then they are forgetting that one of the things that is really affecting this thing of gender equality, why girls are not really participating as much as, because we need to have progressive increment in participation, quality education, quality. So and yet we find that girls, as she said in the beginning, are having issues. We have teenage pregnancies and all these are revolving around the menstrual hygiene and all that. And you understand the government is now even not putting enough adequate resources in health, because if you go to the Abuja Declaration, they are going to tell us we need to have 15% of the budget on health. The government is putting something like 4.2%, which is not even up to 15% or 10%. So the challenges keep revolving over and over again. And these are things, if I'm to look and inquire, ask the government, what exactly should it do? For me, I feel the first priority, as we talk about politics and everything, should put a lot of money as 15%, actually at least progressively 10%, to see that at least we address the issues concerning the health of a girl child and everyone's health. Because if we are all health and sane, we are going to have a good government, we are going to have all these policies, gender equality will fall in place. And also bringing the gentlemen online, because at the end of the day, we are talking about policies, we want everything, but then if our men are not sensitized to understand the things of gender equality, they are going to still push us back. And then it comes back to the constitution. I feel like we need an amendment in the constitution, because whenever there's a gap in the constitution, you're going to find that this gap is going to streamline and fall into the Domestic Violence Act. We have the Marriage and Divorce Bill, which is pending, but all these are challenges which are based in the constitution, because there's a certain article that is not going to recognize certain things to the maximum, and they're going to call it a justifiable article. We need articles that come out to speculate that the right to health and other rights are also same rights as other rights. So for me, that would be my major take home in policy reformation, which I feel the government could have adapted. Now coming back to the intergenerational role, if you take,
go ahead.
If you come to take into consideration what the concept of, it's something that for us in our organization we are trying to champion, to reach out, to see that we bring the old and the young to have these conversations, and at the end to find solutions that are going to be able to address, for us we deal majorly in agriculture and farming practices, to address the challenges that are on board, because at the end of it all, we find the older generation a perspective of affirmative action. Affirmative action is basically there to uplift us. Now we have in a concept of ladies who are already uplifted, and I feel they have attained the economic empowerment, the political desires, socially they are well placed in society. Like I use vivid examples, point blank. Like Kadaga today, if she called Busoga Cultural House, they're going to listen to her. If she had a command politically, they're going to listen to her. Socially, they're going to listen to her. But then ask yourself, how many of these people who have achieved all these statuses are carrying out what she's calling mentorship? Are they mentoring? Because mentorship doesn't mean you're going to teach me. You're going to teach me, give me the hope, give me space to dig. At a point in time, these people are teaching. They are teaching us. For me, I've been in organizations which I'm so grateful for. Akina or Mama, I've been in some spaces of forward. They mentor you, they teach you, they are really doing so much. But now when you come to reach and fight for space that you want to really occupy, these people don't want to let it go. They don't want to let go of these spaces, because currently we would not be having conversations and saying, right honorable, leave this space. She's mentored people in Busoga. Aren't there girls she's mentored who can come into her position? So this intergenerational conversation role should be something that is too critical at the heart of women in society. We should move our talk. We should move our talk, because our mothers mentor us and send us to marriages, let's say. And then, no, she will not come to interfere in your marriage. But then in these leaders, in this political sphere, the ladies mentor us. They really, for me, I had my woman MP is my greatest mentor, actually. She reaches out to me, she asks me, but sometimes I even ask myself, if I come out to pick forms to run for woman MP, do you think she's going to leave for me that space?
You should try that out and see.
No, I really don't want. Socially, we have girls, ladies, like she's spoken about her NGO. these are NGOs that are sprouting and are fighting for gender equality. They are fighting for space, empowering women. She spoke about hers, that she's empowering young lawyers, ladies. Imagine what she's doing. We have organizations that are already established. Are they willing to partner and work with her? Or they are going to say, so those are conversations. This intergenerational role should be something that is, you see, when we are looking at the population, we are going to say the youth are 75%, but then the youthful population is around 15 years, I think, to 35 years. We are around 21%. That shows you that we have an effort to pull those who are behind us to move forward in this journey that we are moving on and have political and to have gender equality in this nation. Thank you.
I want you to, as you also give sort of your parting shots, I want you to hint in 1 minute about what role the youth leadership, or let's say young women in this context, what they can contribute, and how they can change progressively the political, the economic structure in society generally. Parting shots in 1 minute.
You see, I kindly moved away from the conversation of lamenting. There was a time in space where the youth were lamenters. Now, I feel like we need to move to actions. So for me, action is number one. You want a change. Stand up and move for that change. There are many political positions from village to national level. Instead of lamenting every day and fighting and criticizing leaders, we as young leaders, women, we need to also get up and walk that talk, fight for these spaces, come in and try. For me, one of my inspirations this year, I was unable to participate in elections because of reasons known unto me. But there's a certain lady called Maclean from Igara West. Yeah. She was the only lady running for a direct seat among like 3 men, old men. For me, it was an inspiration to me. But we all can't occupy the political space. We can't. We are all change makers, but we can't always occupy the political space. The space is not sufficient for us. Yes, so socially, we have people who are coming in. You may not have the money and resources to open up an organization, but you can informally organize your people within your community and society and see that you teach them on these things. People have gone to school, but most fear to go back to their rural areas to sit down. And yet this is where challenges are faced. Go back home, have conversations, call 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 girls. Me, whenever I go back home, I sit to eat, especially during the circumcision. I make sure I call them. I follow up with authorities. I make sure that I'm following them up to ensure that are these girls in school? And then finally, young ladies, it's important also that you can open up your organizations, but currently we are moving through a budget framework. We are starting from, I think, August up to around May. This is the process of making the budgets. How many ladies are engaged in these decisions? It takes you an effort. Go to your sub-county and ask your sub-county chief, can I see your budget framework? What are you people putting as priorities? If you see that women are not included, health is not included, raise a voice and say, even as we want to be prioritized in these areas. As a young lady, they will listen to you if you mobilize and set yourself. So that means it's just being active, proactive, and participating in any way that you can to ensure that the movement is not stagnant and the movement is moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Fancy, as your part as well, how can young women's leadership shape the business, the politics, and everything in community altogether?
For me, as to young women, is keep doing your thing your way.
What does that mean?
Doing your thing. If you're in tech, keep doing it your way. Okay. As a young woman. Yes. One day, one time, you'll be a part of a movement. I mean, there is so many of us who are continuously, trying to thrive as young women. So keep doing your thing your way. Do not feel like you need to be a part of the political movement or a businesswoman as well. If you're thriving in this area, keep thriving, because one, you're supporting the community, as a whole, but also you're building yourself. And one day we'll get to again celebrate you and celebrate the fact that you invested somewhere. So do not lose hope. Everyone is working towards something. Just keep being faithful in what you're doing. Be teachable, be available in all that you're doing. Yeah, it's part of what life is meant to be about. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. You've heard them. I think one of the things that stands out is, while we are talking about this whole gender equality and gender equal Uganda that we're looking forward to, One of the things that stand out is mentorship, but also intentional mentorship in a sense that while you mentor me to become something, also give me the space to be able to practice that which you mentor me into. So I think this is a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, ladies, for your wisdom around this area and for the work that you all are doing in this space. And the whole idea, and for this year, we also celebrate those 30 years after the Beijing Declaration, that we are walking the talk, that we don't have the laws that are on the shelves, like Fancy was mentioning, that are just there dusty. We put into action that which we are prophesying. Other than that, thank you so much. My name is Roger Suriabwe. It has been an honor being in this conversation. Have a good afternoon.